Good day, folks, ladies and gentlemen, our trillions of audience members. Yeah, that's right. I said trillions because it's true. And it's the Two Maesters. We're back, baby. And we're back with some action. We're going to be talking about Mass Effect. Woo! Get that Reaper sound on, wherever it is. Okay, see, you want to hear how loud it is? See, that's how loud it is, and I can't turn it down. Hi, Josh. How you doing?
I'm good, thanks. I'm really excited to talk about Mass Effect because I think it's one of the big franchises, especially from like the 2010s in gaming, that the fans really do love.
Yeah, it is so rich, isn't it? And I know you could argue that about many of the science fiction genres we've talked about, or sorry, universes we've talked about, like Star Wars, like Dune, I always just can't think of them off the top of my head. Star Trek, yeah, there you go.
Doctor Who that you...
Yeah, Doctor Who. We will do Doctor Who, don't you worry. That's coming up. I keep putting it off, but it will come. And of course, we do need to do...
X-Files,
yeah, definitely. It's got to happen. But back to Mass Effect. Now, Mass Effect is a fantastic video game series, as well as comic books, as well as books. I've only played the first, second, third game. What have you experienced on Mass Effect?
So for myself, it's the three original trilogy and also Andromeda as well.
Oh, you played Andromeda?
Yes, yeah, I played Andromeda.
I played that briefly at a friend's house, and I've got to say, I was not disappointed in that. I knew all the glitches about the facial animations. It's a shame. Why didn't they just use the same game engine? Like, why did they have to redo?
I think the issue was that they wanted to show off like this brand new engine that they've been able to develop. I think it was the Project X, or no, the Project Element engine.
Right.
No, Frostbite. I think, sorry, my mistake. It's the Frostbite engine that the EA was able to then develop. They'd used it for like Dragon Age Inquisition. So I think they wanted to just show off like, oh, we've developed this engine. Let's now look what it looks like. So kind of similar to like what happened to Cyberpunk was like, oh, we've come up with our own engine instead of using like Unreal Engine 4.
Which is tested and reliable,
reliable, and like major people within the industry use it. They wanted to like save some money, use their own engine, and then the glitches came out of the woodworks.
All I'm saying is whoever's idea was that, there's only one thing that should happen to them. Like, I just don't understand how they screwed up and let it... Well, actually, I mean, this is how a lot of glitches happen in these games and they get released because of all these deadlines and owing money to investors. It's a shame, really, because I really love the Mass Effect universe, and I felt Andromeda was just a very sad way to end it all, just like this weak fart of a game. But anyway, enough talking crap about Andromeda. We needed to get that done and out of the way, didn't we? It's like Rings of Power. So, sort of a summary of Mass Effect, and you know me, I love going to Wikipedia for these summaries, because even though Wikipedia is definitely not useful for facts, anyone who's been to university can understand that, or elsewise as well. I sounded really snobby when I said that.
Those who went to university.
Yeah, I'm a cultured man. I studied history of art. No, I'm kidding, I did not. So, Wikipedia says, Mass Effect is a military science fiction media franchise created by Casey Hudson. Do you know who Casey Hudson is?
No.
Nope, neither do I. I really need to look up these names. The franchise depicts a distant future where humanity and several alien civilizations have colonized the galaxy using technology left behind by advanced precursor civilizations. And that's pretty much how you start the game, really. You're kind of just thrown into it. It's got like, with all these science fiction universes, they have to give a bit of description at the beginning, like Star Wars, you've got the scrolling credits and in a galaxy far, far away. In this, it mentions at the beginning that basically mankind on Mars discovers some weird technology that they believe comes from a race called the Protheans. And that's how it starts. It's believed that the Prothean civilization, once a major civilization, left behind all of this advanced technology, which includes mass relay stations, the Citadel, etc. And these pieces of technology seem to really help all these civilizations meet up and connect and unify with each other. And no one really knows why. And the Protheans strangely disappeared, and No one really knows why, and no one really thinks to question it that deeply, apart from maybe a few. And that's pretty much how the game starts. Now, the first mission, sort of, I love it because it just leaves so many oohs going on.
Yeah.
So, Mass Effect 1 begins with Commander Shepard of the SS Normandy, which is a Systems Alliance ship, which is humanity's interplanetary government. The SS Normandy responding to a distress signal from a human colony. On this planet, Shepard and his-her team discover the colonists massacred by a synthetic race known as the Geth. When I say synthetic, they're like robots, basically. Shepard encounters a beacon which grabs a hold of him and induces a vision of death and destruction. They also discover a massive, really intimidating ship that no one can understand what it is at first, apart from this horrible sound, which is terrifying. They've done that in War of the Worlds. They use a similar sort of beacon sound, but it's so abrupt, it kind of like sets you off edge. So, do you remember your sort of first memories of like playing Mass Effect 1? It did come out quite a long time ago. I'll run through the release dates in a moment, but...
Yeah, I think like playing it to begin with, I think the way that they did the mission was like throwing you like into the universe. So like you had like the guests. I've been reading up too much Star Wars strategy with the Grisk and then combining those two together. So the Geth and then also like the husks as well. You start to see them like they're the colonists impaled on like spikes, and then that turns them into kind of like husk forms that are controlled by the Geth
zombies,
as well. Yeah, and it's like also the introduction to the first time you see like the Turians as well.
Yeah,
because then like you hear like
Saris.
that Shepard's mission is that he's going through and potentially become Earth's first Spectre. And then you've got like his protege, Anderson, who's basically saying, yes, that Shepard, this is your opportunity and if you excel, this is your opportunity to become a Spectre, which would be huge for humanity. And I think that was like a key like storytelling element that actually added to the game. So like, okay, so humanity is one of the last comers to the galactic civilization.
Yeah, or the most recent, shall we say.
The most recent, and that Shepard is a pivotal person within said universe, and that he's going to be a Spectre, a position which no human has been before. And then also from like the discussions you see that several races aren't too fond of humanity, especially the Turians, which links back to the lore about the First Contact War.
Yeah.
Where humanity's, as they do, sees an alien species and does exactly that.
Shoots first, ask questions there. Well, actually, it was the Turians who shot first. What happened in I hate to be so corrective and nerdy about this, but what happened was the humans had gone to a Prothean site or found some technology. They hadn't met any alien civilizations. The Turian patrol picked that up, and the Citadel is very careful of people interfering with that. So they just started opening fire, the Turians, because they assumed it would be interfering in some way. And it sets a bad impression if you meet aliens and the first thing they do is start opening fire on you. Yeah. So if anything, for once, humanity wasn't doing what it does best, but I'm pretty sure humanity would have fired first anyway, just in case. Yeah, people get nervous around aliens, so I don't blame them. But yeah, you summed up pretty well. You got the start there that you understand that humanity is one of the most recent members to the, what's it called? The Galactic Council?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the name. And the Galactic Council based on the Citadel, which is, again, this other piece of Prothean technology that no one really understands why it was left for them or why the Protheans were such a giving race, but it's just there. And there's a race of aliens on there called the Keepers, but no one really knows who they are. They don't really interact with one. They're very helpful. And, like, for example, we'll go into the second, all the races and species. The Asari were the first to discover the Citadel, I think it was supposed to be like, I can't check. I don't want to do it. I don't want to say something that I'm going to get corrected on. But essentially, they discovered the Citadel and found these Keepers on there, and they don't know what they were for. They don't know why they're there. They just maintain the ship and sometimes occasionally change stuff around when these alien races try and, install, I don't know, a Starbucks on a floor. These Keepers come along and just basically they're there to preserve it. But no one knows why. And furthermore, there's areas of the Citadel no one can get access to, where the keepers are just churning out of. And I love that mystery, because it's like, what's going on here? Like, you're discovering a mystery in this, as well as the cool side of it, which is very Star Trek, in that all the alien races have been given appropriate descriptions and history and lore.
Yes.
Whilst in Star Wars, you don't really get that.
Yeah,
you know,
no.
They're just there as like background figures. Just, oh yeah, they look cool. Let's just move swiftly on. So I think before we sort of get to the main spoilers, when we start talking about the Reapers, let's talk about some of the races in it, because they're just fantastic, aren't they? So you've got the Systems Alliance, which is what mankind is organized into. You have the Turians, which we mentioned, which I don't know how you describe them, but I just love the alien designers. They're like pointy,
I think
humanoid, two fingers.
Someone said, like, if you took a mixture between a dog and a reptile, like they have a face of kind of like a dog / reptile, and they're like a humanoid shape.
Yeah, I'd just say that makes rough sense. Yeah,
and I think like if you look at it as their design, there's nothing that looks like them in any other like sci-fi lore at all. I think
they're so
that's
original.
Probably would have been so hard for like those developing Mass Effect, was that how can we create aliens that don't look anything or too similar to anything done by either like Battlestar Galactica, Star Wars, Dune, Star Trek, Doctor Who. How can we stay away from the norms and develop something new? And I think with the Batarians, they really did.
Exactly, and they also avoid the trope of, like, for example, Warhammer, where they just basically do fantasy characters in space, which is great, but, you know, Eldar, space elves, orcs, like, yeah, it's cool. They've made so many original races, and I just love it. And this is why I really, even though I didn't finish playing all the Mass Effect games, I did watch most of it on YouTube, actually all of it on YouTube, really. I just couldn't be asked. I just loved the story too much, but just reading the Mass Effect Wikipedia, or Wikia as they call it, when it's like a specific for a nerdy genre, I'd highly recommend that. And any of the books as well, which again I didn't read. Then you got the Turians, then you have the Asari, which are like a purple, bluish, but sometimes green, sometimes pinkish purple, seemingly all female race that are sort of considered the diplomats out of all the races in it. Yeah. They tend to sort of resolve stuff with diplomacy rather than what humans and Turians do, which is hell yeah, getting in there with the big guns. And very strange, because whilst they're an alien race, they can easily mate and reproduce with other races.
Yes,
which is very like unusual in how we understand. You know, for example, you could breed a tiger and a lion, but it makes a liger an issue of that is there's a difference between a hybrid and something else, because the issue with ligers is that they can't reproduce. I just found that kind of fascinating. And there's even like weird rumors within the Mass Effect universe that some races think that the Asari might actually take on certain forms depending who's looking at them, or that they release some sort of pheromone that means humans see them in a
specific way compared to what Krogan would see or any of the other races. And like, I even remember, I think there's a mission on the Citadel about these two couples where the guy is, so you had the boyfriend in the relationship who's Krogan, and then his Asari girlfriend.
Yeah, I remember overhearing that.
And then like overhearing, like, they actually just kind of like use the DNA to make another Asari. So it's not even like, so they basically take the DNA of an alien race. Yeah. And they just take it and use it to then make another Asari. Yeah, and there's even like some characters within this game that think Asari are eventually going to take over the known galaxy, because essentially, you know, a human breeds with Asari, they won't do it. And that's why I just find that really cool, because they've put so much thought and practice into it. And of course, in a very not safe for work way, you can also visit strip clubs on the Citadel on this game and see Asari dancing. But let's not dive into that too much, because we're a family-friendly show, which we can swear on now, which is fucking great. I know. Fucking incredible. Yeah, I hope Jeffrey's right about I'm about to get cancelled. Another thing about the Asari as well, they're one of the longest living races as well. Oh, are they? Okay. I think I've forgotten what her name is. I think Samara is her name in Mass Effect 2. I think she said she was like 500 years old. And I think they can live up to like 600, 700 years old. And I think in the first game, you've got Liara's mother.
Yeah.
Who I believe she was called like the matriarch. I think she was 700. So I think they can reach the 1,000-year-old mark.
Wow. That's
and I think that's also a reason why they don't reproduce as quick as the other races. Because it's like, well, if I live for like 700 years, I can then spend, which they also even discuss in the games, like, I can spend the first 200 just traveling the galaxy, getting to know the place, understanding where I fit in. Yeah, basically, imagine living to the age of 700. You wouldn't rush in your first 100 years to have kids because you're like, well, I've got at least 400 years more to have.
Yeah. God, yeah, that's a good point. You could spend so much more of your time doing stuff you want to do. Because it's weird, human beings, roughly, let's say even though it's not very accurate, as a rule of thumb, most humans live to 100, theoretically.
Yeah.
We spend most of our time, at work, and, we retire, at the age of, 60-something, generally? Again, not accurate. I'm just giving an example. It's like, well, then if you live to 100, you've only got 30 years left to I don't know, if you haven't explored the world when you're younger and stuff, it's difficult. And I even saw this great meme of don't wait. It literally says, don't wait until you're retired to explore the world. And it shows two tourists on one of those Venetian rowboats with the gondola. And it just shows them both fast asleep, just their mouths open, the gondola just posing with them.
Yeah.
Poor elderly tourists. Don't wait till you're old to travel the world or the galaxy for that matter. And I guess, good thing to bring up the age, how long races live to, because the next one I'm going to talk about, Solarians are known to be one of the races that live the shortest amount of time. They've got very, very high metabolism. They're amphibian, lizard-like race that, because of their high metabolism, they do things very quickly. They are very, very smart. They're very good at picking up information. They're quite quick to move. But also means they only live for about 25 years, which is incredibly short compared to Asari. But they are cool. They're seen as sort of geeky
scientists.
I also think there's sort of a sort of reference in them to just how a lot of nerds can be.
I can see that.
I can see it myself in the Solarian race. And an interesting part about their culture is that you don't see many female Solarians because they're so intelligent and knowledge and science driven that to save their home planet from a environmental extinction, similarly what we're going through, they actually have deliberately chosen population control at some point in their history, whereby they only, because of the ways they breed, it's through, what do you call it when something's a non-mammal? What was it? Reptile? Something amphibian. Okay, so that's what amphibian means. I thought that literally means you can go on land and water.
It's weird because amphibians like frogs, salamanders, and toads can do that, so they can breathe on land and in water.
Right. Okay. Well, the thing with Solarians is they give birth in. They're not mammals in that they give birth to eggs, and if they fertilize those eggs, they become males. If they don't fertilize those eggs, they become females, and they deliberately choose to only have one female for every 9 males, just for population control reasons.
Okay.
Purely because they understand, sustainable development.
So that's why they were really happy with the genophage then.
Yeah, exactly. The genophage of the Krogan, and they're going straight on to the next race. And it's just, the lore in this is just amazing. Where the hell is this in Star Wars? Who the hell are the Mon Calamari?
Yes.
The Hutts, all gangsters? What, an entire race is gangsters? That's just not right. I would just love to see this much detail in Star Wars. Star Trek, bang on, really good. But in Star Trek, every alien race is conveniently 2 arms, 2 legs, humanoid looking. Whilst in this, it gets a bit more complicated, So Solarians, Asari, and Turans, I would say, are very humanoid in that they are bipedal. They've got 2 arms, 2 eyes, etc. Then we go on to the Krogan, which again, okay, fair enough, 2 arms, 2 eyes, but they're starting to look a lot more different. These are almost seen as like the hulking,
orcish,
orcish kind of race,
orcish reptile like race.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I did say that it was like that. Mass Effect didn't fall for the trope of using fantasy races, but I do realize the Krogans are kind of like orcs, aren't they? So essentially, Krogans, as you say, like quite orcish, big, brutal sort of race of creatures whose homeworld was obliterated by nuclear war. And at some point in the Mass Effect universe, they had a war with the Solarians. I think originally the Solarians kind of used them as a weapon. Like they were breeding them, weren't they?
So like what happened was like the council. So like the part of the council is that you had the Taurians were invited for their warfare knowledge. The Solarians were invited for their scientific knowledge, and like the Asari were seen as like the business-minded diplomats who were very much level-headed. So many a times when you have an interaction with the council, it always seems like the Asari is more relaxed, while the Turian and the Solarian are more like anxious and more active to be like either we like humans or we don't like them. So what happened was that the council interacted with the Rachni. By interacting with the Rachni, they then realized, oh shit, we basically unlocked this alien race that will basically take up and destroy all of the galaxy. Then they went to get the Krogan and then bred the Krogan to then fight the Rachni, which they did, which they then defeated. But then they bred too many Krogan. And then we're like, oh dear, now we've got all these Krogan all over the galaxy, and now they want to take over the galaxy.
Who are very warlike, aren't they? Yeah. Ironic, isn't it? Yeah, and then the Genophage, they create that to basically control their population, and because of that, the Krogan fell into line somehow. I don't know why you would suddenly. I'd be like, well...
Because I think the main issue is that it meant that there were a lot less females.
Right, okay.
And that and then also fertility rates dropped significantly.
Yeah.
So then, because they dropped significantly, they then had to suffer from, like, imagine like if human population, like during the Black Death, because so many people who were working and building the economy ended up dying, you then don't have enough people to build up the economy, not enough people to do the work that's needed. So then at times they have to take like handouts. And like, for example, throughout like Mass Effect 1 and Mass Effect 2, you see like Krogan as mercenaries all over the galaxy. And it's like because there's nothing really to go home to and they have to make a form of living. And I think that's also one of the reasons
that's what they do best, isn't it?
The Krogan really hate, and you can see it throughout Mass Effect, hate the Solarians and the Turians. Funny enough, they don't hate the Asari as much. Like, the Turians were the ones who dropped the bomb, and the Solarians came up with the science about it. But I think it's just like, there's deep hatred. And it does bring up like a really big question that the Krogan were like a race which was kind of backwards until they met the Solarian.
Right.
The Solarians gave them modern technology, which then caused them to then advance very quickly, but because they were very warlike, they then use that warlike tendencies.
Right.
So it did bring in the question that I've seen some fans say is that would it have been better off to leave the Krogan as they were? Because then if you give technology to a people and a culture which is warlike and you give it to them too quickly, then what happened to their home planet, which was nuclear war that almost fully destroyed it, is what happens.
Yeah, that's true. And there's a lot of ethical questions about that because you see that in, say, other genres, I keep saying genres, universes, like Star Trek, for example. The Federation of Planets are only allowed to accept a new race or a new species when they've developed faster than light technology. Like that's what happened to the Vulcans and the humans. So again, I guess you could see that in this is like, because we look at what happened to Krogan, maybe that's why aliens haven't really done that with us, because quite frankly, the Cold War is not a good example. Although we didn't pull the trigger, but we could have ended up like those Krogans. Who knows? But yeah, very cool. And again, I love that sort of background there, that they're not just all races existing by themselves, but they actually have history of each other. Krogans hate Solarians.
Yeah, and the Turians as well. But and the Solarians the most, and you can always see it like with Solarian and Turian, Solarian and Krogan interactions, especially in like, for example, the Citadel, or if it's like a mission with Rex, and it's like, especially in Mass Effect 3, if you're able to, a spoiler here, stop Rex from dying in Mass Effect 1, you could then see him in Mass Effect 2 and 3, and just his interactions with actual Solarians is also quite hilarious.
Yeah, it is quite funny, Rex. There's certain characters we haven't even like spoken about. Just so many more races to get through. But one thing I guess we should really say at the beginning is Mass Effect is a third-person shooter video game originally released for Xbox, and a lot of it is like character focused in an interesting way. So it's always about picking your team and your squads, and they all like different species, apart from obviously more humans than any of the other races. But with all these races you've got there, you can pick them as team members. So you can have Liara Tizoni, who's a Asari, Rex, as you say, is a Krogan. What was the name of the Solarian dude?
Garrus.
No, that's the Turian dude. I swear that's Turian
Solarian.
Dude.
No, Dr. What's his name again?
I can't remember.
Come on. Dr.
Come back to us.
Because I remember he used to sing like...
I'm a I can't remember exactly what he says, but it's funny when he sings that. Oh wow, yeah, it's just I just love the character development. Yes. There's no characters I didn't like. Okay, let's see.
Is it Dr. Solus?
Maybe Solus.
I think it might be Solus. Yeah, I think but I think the way that they have the characters is that they also embody aspects of their race. So like Liara is always like inquisitive, wanting to know more, wanting to understand the galaxy, which is a kind of like aspect of
quite a calm persona about her. Yeah.
And then like Garrus is to begin with is like methodical, military approach. Everything must be precision.
Quite
until like you get to like the second game where he turns into a vigilante.
Yeah, that's bad.
And always wants to calibrate the guns as well.
Yeah, he loves calibrating the guns and the other thing. Yeah, it's like you can't switch off. He's almost, the Turians always come across as like not robotic, but they're very highly strung, aren't they? There's a joke that all the Turians have a stick up their ass or something. You hear Joker on the
yes.
Again, a great human character, the Joker, which is played by Seth
Green.
Yeah, Seth Green, who just did like, what's he been in? Like American Pie, like all these cult coming of age US comedies, and just funny. Like some of the voice actors they have in it. I want to point out, is it Captain Anderson, who originally commands the SS Normandy? He voiced the Arbiter in Halo.
Yes, he does.
As well as, I'm pretty sure, don't quote me on this, but I think he voices the President in Rick and Morty.
I believe he might do, yes.
It sounds like him.
Because I know that the actor's a very, very good voice actor.
Yeah.
He does voice acting across the board.
In Rick and Morty. Who's it voiced by? I don't know. It's not that easy to find. Well, perhaps one of our trillions of audience members can. Yeah, okay. Ditching that quest, taking too long to do. But let's see. Maybe one of our audience members can find that out for us because we're too lazy. So then we've got the Quarians, which are a race of nomads that essentially they're very strongly defined by the fact that they lost a war against their own synthetic creations, the Geth, who, as we know, were up to bad stuff at the beginning of Mass Effect 1, and now essentially teeter on the edge of extinction, floating through galaxy, basically on like a spaceborne fleet. But because they've been living in these ship quarters for so long, which tend to be very sterile environments just by their very nature, they've actually become, their immune systems become so weak that they have to stand these life support machines, especially when they leave their ships stuff, which is really cool, because I also think that's something that I think is really important for even human beings today, is like, let your kids eat a little bit of dirt when they're younger. Like, obviously don't let them eat dirt, but like, let them be a bit gross. The immune system
needs to be boosted up. Yeah. Like, I think, the Quarian lost their seat on the council because of the Geth.
No, right, okay.
Yeah, and like, I think the main thing that they were doing was like, let's develop some kind of like synthetic race that can then help support us. And I think it might have been that the Geth got corrupted by the Reapers, I think, and that's what caused them to rebel. Because then I always think like spoiler here, when they introduce like Legion into Mass Effect, and I'm like, so then there are Geth who don't listen to the rest of the Geth. So maybe it's that the Geth were corrupted by the Reapers.
Exactly. So the Geth that are corrupted by the Reapers, or at least worship them as gods.
Yeah.
Assuming it's on their own free will, it's hard to tell if they're indoctrinated or not. And we're going to get to the Reapers, don't worry.
And indoctrination.
And indoctrination, So the Geth originally were synthetic creations of the Quarians, but rebelled against them, won essentially. And in the first Mass Effect game, you find the Geth essentially working with the Reapers. That gigantic ship that you see in the first game, that I think it's Saris, the rogue council spectre, is
and the
using.
Ship, I think Sovereign,
Sovereign, honestly, the Reapers are so cool. But essentially, it seems that the Geth worship them as gods, or perhaps they're victims of their indoctrination, which we'll talk about in a second. But there's a character that in Mass Effect 2, is it? You can take on, which is a Geth who's called Legion, who actually isn't a bad guy. And he actually says, assuming he's a he says that only a sect of the Geth worship the Reapers, and they're called heretics. Which is cool, because that's just like synthetics calling each other heretics.
And I think I really loved that story, especially because we always think, especially like with American Hollywood themes, it's like robots are evil. And like when robots take over and rise up, they then, like perfect example, Matrix, Terminator, all of them are evil. But then hearing what Legion was saying is that, it's just some of them and not all of them. And it also brings on, I think the thing that fans love about Mass Effect, it brings on like moral quandaries. Like, you shouldn't judge the Geth because of the actions of a few or actions of some. And I think that's a thing that you could play as like Shepard. And also like, because you've got like Tali, who's like your teammate, who's a Quarian, and then trying to convince her that this Geth that her people have warred with and fought with for countless years is actually on your side and actually can help and support.
Yeah, and it's great seeing the dynamic between, because when you've got these squad members on your ship, you'll go into one of the rooms and find, like, for example, Tali arguing with Legion, but I can't remember what about. And you can also choose to bring them in missions.
I remember he tried to access some of her files.
Oh, yeah.
And then she thought that as he's a Geth, he's trying to access her files to then, she thought to, like, find out more about the Geth to then potentially attack them.
The Quarians,
it was him who was actually trying to learn more about the Quarians. And I think from his discussion, I think he said that the Quarians shot first. Mm-hmm. And I think the Quarians feared how powerful they had become and has shot first. So then some fled and then found the Reapers and started worshipping them. And then came back and then fought the Quarians, because that was
I can confirm that it was the Quarians that shot first.
That was the big thing, like in the second game, that when we're learning through like her trial. A spoiler here, because like one of the things, to your point, that with the Quarians is that they can't bring some forms of like technology back to their ship, because she was believed to have brought back some form of like Geth technology, which then had caused like a ship to be taken and overrun by the Geth, even though they were supposed to be like just analyzing Geth, but they were offline. But then you actually realized that her father had done an experiment which caused them to come back online. But the fact that, imagine like as a group of people who are then traveling throughout the galaxy, and you see like in the early aspects on Omega, this guy has to go through like a rite of passage, that he has to go out and bring something back to the flotilla before he can be then accepted back into society. Right,
so it's part of their sort of, is it a coming of age, or is it just because okay, that's cool. God, it was so long ago since I've played Mass Effect 1. I struggled to remember some of these things. I was watching so many lore videos on YouTube and stuff, but it's just the little things. Like
it is.
It's a game where you don't, for example, in like Fallout and stuff, there's a lot of side quests and stuff. which is great. But the main story is like kind of what I would just go through. I just get on the main story. But in this, I just loved seeing all the side quests because it just reveals so many little details that there's the main story in the game, which is great. But even just the side quests are just amazing. And now we've got to talk about the Reapers. And this is where all the spoilers come in. So the Reapers, wow. I mean, the way the game sort of trickles in the knowledge about them, because there's just so much mystery about them. Like, why are they hit? So there's only one Reaper you encounter in the first game. That's Sovereign, and he's huge. One of the biggest ships in the game. He makes an absolutely terrifying sound, which I'll do again. And he's just beast. Well, I guess he's a he, but beast-like. And the Reapers, you slowly find this out throughout the game, but essentially the Reapers are there to exterminate all organic life. Every 50,000 years, they come back to exterminate all organic life. And you eventually find out that it was not the Protheans who had developed this mass relay technology, developed the Citadel, etc. It was the Reapers so that they could encourage organic life to regrow and connect to each other, and then they could just eliminate and massacre them so quickly.
Yeah.
Go on.
And I was just going to say, like, did you play, like, or did you know about the Leviathan?
Yeah.
The fact that the Reapers are actually indoctrinated Leviathan?
They indoctrinated Leviathan?
No. So, like, the Leviathans
can do that, yeah.
And built the Reapers. So they were the builders of the Reapers.
Yeah.
And then, you know how like each indoctrinated race looks different? So humans are like the husks. You also have, like in Mass Effect 3, you see like what happens.
The Asari
turn into, what the Turians turn into, what the Krogans turn into. And I think, do you actually see what the Solarians turn into? I don't think you do.
I can't remember.
I think maybe because their lifespan is so low that they just don't choose to use them at all. But I think the Reapers are potentially those who have been converted and indoctrinated Leviathans.
Yeah, they are. And this is the best thing about EA, is that the way you find out the true origin of the Reapers is in DLC.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, EA. Thank you. Where's my celebration button? I don't have one because it doesn't work, but I've got this. Screw you, EA. Bloody DLC, making a full game and just chopping it up. But yeah, essentially you do find out that originally it's really weird, the mystery behind the Reapers. Like in Mass Effect 1, there's a conversation that Shepard has with one of the Reapers where you just ask him, who created you? And the Reaper says, it does not matter. We have no beginning. We have no end. Organic life must be exterminated. And that's it. And I just love it because even in Mass Effect 2, it's like, what? Or who are the Reapers?
Yeah.
But then they have the Collectors, which you find out eventually are in cahoots with the Reapers somehow.
Yeah, and like the fact that the Collectors are the indoctrinated husk form of the Protheans.
Boom. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like throughout the game, you think that, so the Reapers took out the Protheans, but then you finally realize that no, the Reapers have been doing this on an ever-increasing cycle.
Every 50,000 years.
And the fact for time immemorial, you don't know how long this cycle has continued. And I think it's just also looking at like, scientists say that the galaxy, I think they said maybe 13 billion years since the Big Bang. And then you just think to yourself, like, in that time... How many cycles in that time space of like, different races that have spanned parts of their different galaxies. And you think to yourself, like, there must have been multiple.
Yeah, many. And you do realize that it wasn't just the Protheans who sort of understood the Reapers. It always was too late with each civilization that understood that the Reapers were coming to extinguish everyone. They always lost, but they... Basically, how the Reapers are defeated eventually is something called the Crucible, and it's basically the scientists of each one of those civilizations that peaked and then the Reapers came. They all somehow discovered this Crucible and add a little bit to it each time. Yeah. And the Protheans, I think, managed to like...
almost finish it. Yeah. And I think with the Protheans was that they had a longer time span. I think they were fighting the Reapers for decades, I think maybe even centuries that they were fighting them for. But then, like, for the present cycle, it was like, nah, we're just going to give you 4 years.
yeah, exactly. It's just human beings.
And I think the thing that fans really love about the game is that Shepard is banging on this drum like Chicken Little that the sky's falling down, and everyone's like, we're not sure. Maybe that, because the first time he goes to the council and is like, my vision, I've seen this. They're like, sit over there, Earthling. We don't believe you. And then when he comes back to them, they're like, oh, it's just one ship. You can't really say that this big theory based on just one ship. And I think the major thing that really doesn't help Shepard is that the relic breaks when he touches it. So that
the thing that gave him the vision.
Only he is able to then see the vision. And it also then brings into like the conversation, like, how many times did Shepard think to himself, am I like on the right path? Am I going insane? Did I actually believe this? And I think that's another thing that fans loved, was like his conviction to then constantly be like, no, I'm going to stop this from happening no matter what. And if no one believes me and they think I'm crazy, which multiple times they have said it, until the third game, they're like, oh, Shepard, come and save us.
Yeah.
and instead of like being like, screw you folks, I've been telling you for years, he's like, you know what? Fine, I'll do it. And I think that's why another part of the franchise does so well.
Yeah, exactly. And it's those decisions and those choices, because you get, I think they abandoned it in the third game, and maybe the second, but you had Paragon points and Renegade points, didn't you?
Yeah,
so
you did.
You know, it was like your dialogue options of people you could choose how you went about things, and also that actually did have an impact in the second game and third game, although arguably not as much as I would have liked. But compared to other game series where they say, "Oh yeah, your decisions will make big effects," and they just don't. And
it does.
They did, but not a super amount.
They did actually, like in the second game, like if your Paragon wasn't high enough or your Renegade wasn't high enough, when you have like Miranda and Jack arguing, you then, if you didn't have a high enough Renegade or Paragon, one of them would die at the end of the mission.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, so the way that they played it out was that if you didn't have a high enough Paragon or Renegade, your teammates would end up dying in the final mission. So like you had three key points. So you had the issue with like Tally and Legion. So if you didn't resolve that and you didn't have enough high Renegade or Paragon points, one of the two would die.
Right.
On the last mission. And as I said, like with Jack and Miranda, if you didn't have enough high Renegade or potentially not high enough Paragon, one of the two would die. And then I've forgotten who was the guy that was in charge of the ecliptic mercs.
The Eclipse. Oh,
and
I don't know.
The old guy who
the
has
Shadow Broker?
No. It was like a white guy who was old and was always complaining, was a mercenary. Funny enough, he was also a DLC that they added on and added character with the DLC.
I think so. I can't remember.
I think his name started with Z, I believe. Yeah. And in his storyline mission, he basically wanted to kill the person who took him out from being the head of the Ecliptic Mercs.
Right.
So the Eclipse Mercs. So then he was like, if your Renegade and Paragon isn't high enough, he will then end up just leaving.
Right, okay. So you have to be either really Renegade or really Paragon.
And like they're also like, for those who remember the beginning of like Mass Effect 2, where the ship gets cut to ribbons by the Reaper, by the collector ship.
Which is cool. Shepard dies at the beginning. Like, wow. And then he gets brought back to life by Cerberus. But anyway, sorry, go on.
If you don't upgrade that part of the ship, when you go for the final mission, crew members will die because the ship gets hit by the lasers provided by the collector ship. Yeah. So, like, you have to do certain things or your squad mates will end up dying and therefore not carry over into the third game.
Yeah, but then what, would Garrus would have died? Oh, mind you, I guess it's been so long. So I guess do you have Garrus with you as a character in Mass Effect 3?
Yes. So what they do is like, so Tally comes back, Garrus comes back as well. You also have Liara who's also there as well. But then you have like major interactions with the characters, and they don't come your like part of your your squad anymore, but they then do play like pivotal missions throughout the whole game. But then they won't appear at all if you didn't if you didn't do their actual companion mission, and two, if there was like a flashpoint period that you didn't intervene correctly, and three, if you didn't upgrade the ship. So there was like two key upgrades. One of them was the shields, and I think another one was the gun battery.
Right, okay. And that will have an effect. Okay, I didn't know. I did see that, there's a way you could have in Mass Effect 3 and Mass Effect 2 endings, all your crew members die, like your ship just makes it off somehow.
Yeah, yes.
Which is pretty crazy. Like the worst ending. It's cool. And I love those decisions because sometimes there really isn't a right or wrong answer. Like in Mass Effect 1, when the Alliance shows up to all the council races minus the humans are trying to fight off the Geth fleet as well as Sovereign, which is just unstoppable. And they're all getting battered pretty badly. And then one of the coolest scenes in the game, which just in all the games, makes my head stand up on end, is when everyone's going to crap, and then, oh my god, there's new ships showing up. Praise the gods, it's the Alliance. And then finally everyone loves the humans because they come into the rescue. Before that, don't like the humans, they're very aggressive, blah, blah, and rightfully so in their complaints. But then in that moment, we love you now. Yes. And Shepard has a decision that's save the council who are on the Asari capital ship because they're about to be destroyed, or dive straight in and go for Sovereign as a priority one target. And if you choose to go for Sovereign, which makes perfect sense, because he's the bigger evil there, you're basically criticizing Mass Effect 2 for basically being too human-friendly, even though you are human, and letting the Council die. And the Council is reformed, but it's more human-centric. Humans lead the Council and stuff.
They have way more influence. And if you then choose to save them, then people in the Alliance end up dying. And then
you get criticized by your own race.
Yeah.
It's cool, isn't it? I like that. Cool.
Yeah. And another thing that's in the first game, Rex finds out that potentially there could be a cure to the genophage, and it's through what's his name again? Saris is basically trying to do experiments with Krogan to be able to have a force to fight the council with. And then if you don't have a big enough relationship with Rex, he could then turn on you and be well, my Krogans and my people are more important than you. And then you then have to then kill him. And then in the later games, he's not there. And I think I think that's the thing that I really did was that it kind of seemed as if they had planned out okay, then your decisions are going to actually make a major impact. And if the way you decide certain characters, that's the end of their story.
Yeah, that's cool. I guess there are major impacts, but I think for me, it just roughly remembering Mass Effect 3, say if you did save an alien race or something, all you really see is there might be a ship in the distance in one screen that's from that alien race, as opposed to properly interacting. For example, Samara's companion mission is to help her kill her daughter because her daughter's an Ardat Yakashi, which means basically Asari have this power to meld with people's minds and basically connect on a really weird psychic level.
Yes.
And when Morinth does that, it kills them, and because it's just too intense, it melts their minds. And basically, if you save Morinth, if you choose her daughter Morinth over Samara, then the only thing you see from Morinth from Mass Effect 3 is just a Banshee that comes up. Because Banshees are the Asari. Yeah. The Asaris have been indoctrinated. Their version of Husk.
It's Banshees,
it just says Morinth, and that's it. There's no dialogue. There's actually, she does leave there's a email. It's funny you can look at emails in this. There's an email she sends to Shepard that says, "Thank you for choosing me," blah, blah, blah. But then that's nothing from her. And and I just wanted to see a bit more there. But I guess, they still did something somewhere. So
100%. And I think one thing that they did do, I think, because they realized that there wasn't enough in the ending, is that they released a Citadel DLC.
Oh, wow, okay. I never actually saw the Citadel. What did that involve?
It basically was this, it was hilarious, basically. the elusive man built another shepherd and a clone shepherd just in case the actual shepherd ended up dying.
Yeah.
So then he's like, the clone shepherd was basically fully pissed off. Like, now everyone's forgotten about me because the real shepherd is come to save the day.
Yeah.
So then he takes over like some aspects of Cerberus and then attacks Shepherd to try and kill and replace him.
Right. Okay.
And then it's like the whole crew comes back together. Like everyone from like all of the last two games, everyone in the third game, they all come together to then defeat the clone shepherd. And then they bring in like these. Shepherd gets one, he gets an apartment. Two,
nice.
Whoever you like, for example, if you romance the character in the second game, and they weren't a companion of yours in the third game, you could actually invite them to your apartment.
Oh,
and then there was also like a party as well. You could have like a huge party that would invite everybody that you knew. I
never saw this in
Yeah, it was amazing. It was a really good DLC because it was like, I think they realized, we've kind of like messed up with the way the ending is and fans are angry. So let's just put this in to like fans have a one last goodbye to all the characters that they love and actually can like full on enjoy it.
Because it's a character driven game really. And I'm really glad they did that. Because, so many cool characters, Legion, Javid as well. Yeah. Did you see that DLC? Okay, because let's quickly talk about the Protheans. Then we're done with talking about the races. There's also some more minor races, but you do see them pop up like Volus, what are the pink ones called? Elcor, which are the only aquatic based race.
The Elcor are the ones who have to say the Elcor I think are the ones that have to say their emotions.
Oh, do they? Okay.
Yeah, so
they're the pink jellyfish things.
Oh, they might be. Yeah, I think there might be them. But then you also have, the ones that always have to be like, who kind of like have like 4 legs.
And they're really tall and big. Yeah. Oh, yeah, they're cool. Yeah, because I guess it's good they throw them in because it's like, if you ever met aliens, it'd be difficult to assume they'll all be humanoid. And even though Mass Effect doesn't fall into the Star Trek and Star Wars trap that like basically all aliens are going to look somewhat humanoid, Mass Effect kind of moves away from that. But most of the races do look humanoid, let's be honest. But they do throw in ones that aren't, don't they?
And let's not forget the Batarians who are
4 eyes or something. Yeah.
And I think also the faction that I think they were also potentially either on the council or they were on the council.
Who?
The Batarians, and that's why they hate humanity so much.
They left the council because humanity was kind of expanding near them, and the Batarians wanted to be a space of interest for them.
Yes.
And the council refused to do that, so the Batarians just walked out.
Yeah, and also what brought Shepard to fame with the Skillian Blitz.
Right.
Basically Batarian slavers were coming to attack a colony.
Yeah.
And, like, he single-handedly, it's funny because like you can elaborate so much and make it seem like it was like a full-on Rambo or potentially like a full-on like Terminator type thing that he fought back, basically fought them off until the Alliance came. And that also angered the Batarians as well, because it was like one of the things that Batarians do is they're also involved in slavery.
Yeah.
So then that kind of also ticked them off, because they were like, wait a second, we have been in a part of the Alliance longer than humanity, so why are you taking their side over us? So it caused them to lose. And also in Mass Effect 3, they're the race that's hit the worst.
Yeah, because they're near Nexus Point and all the Reapers just come in.
And that's what, like, funny enough, a DLC in the second game, which is called like Arrival.
Yeah.
And you realize like this group of scientists have been indoctrinated, and that they're indoctrinated to help the Reapers arrive.
Right.
And that they don't know that. But then Shepard realizes, wait a second, no, this is a bit weird. They've actually been indoctrinated. And unfortunately, the arrival point is in Batarian space.
Oh, dear.
So what happens is that Shepard basically causes kind of like a supernova in like a Batarian system.
Oh, dear. They're big fans of him, aren't they?
And literally, and the thing is, like, he didn't do it on purpose, because like he didn't want it to happen, but there were those who were indoctrinated had already set it off.
Yeah.
And it was going to happen. There's nothing he can do. So he tried to send out like a signal in advance, but they kind of like blocked the message. So then it was just like hilarious, the fact that it's like Shepard again causing harm to the Batarians.
He's the true villain of it's not the Reapers, it's Shepard.
Yeah. The Batarian race.
Yeah, the Batarians just want to, do their thing, although they do engage in piracy, slavery, and all that stuff. But they become kind of like a rogue government in it, which is interesting because you can see. Well, that will be one of my questions. Like, what can you see as like the inspirations? But we'll come to that soon. When you said going back to the Skillian Blitz, was that just one of the story backgrounds you could choose for Shepard in the first game? Because you could choose him as like the hero, the lone survivor, or the ruthless.
I think that's a key point, but I think like how he.
Oh, so it's always to do with that place.
Yeah,
okay.
But how either was he a hero that he saved millions? Was he just a lone survivor, or was he ruthless in his attempt to take out the Batarians?
I like the lone survivor one, to be honest. That's the one I went for. But did you go for the hero one?
Yeah, I went for the hero one, yeah.
Oh, so noble. Lone survivor, it's tragic. It's like Anakin Skywalker style, He could turn to the dark side because he was molded in the dark. So last race to talk about, because we got to talk about the Protheans. Now, the funny thing is people thought the Protheans were this amazing race that left all these gifts for everyone to find the mass relay stations, the citadels. Turns out, no, they were just another race that the Reapers exterminated, and the Reapers left all that technology so they could exterminate stuff easy. The coolest thing is finding out that the Protheans weren't this great...
scientific race. I think someone
enlightened.
said it was perfect. Like, they weren't the Athenians, they were the Romans. Everyone thought they were these Socrates and Plato, philosophers walking around discovering things, scientists, and it's like, no, they were the Romans, basically.
They were an empire,
They were an empire built, and they were steamrolling all other races as well.
Yeah, and it was the Prothean Empire, and you were either a client state of the Prothean Empire or you were an enemy.
Yes.
They're just the most dominant. And the coolest thing is, I think one of the, if not the coolest crew members, it's between Legion or Javid, I'd say, is Javid, the last Prothean. Another DLC.
A trend here.
Yeah. That's how many times I want to shoot EA for these bloody DLC games. In one DLC, you can basically awaken the last Prothean who managed to somehow survive stasis. And the coolest thing is, he's an arsehole.
He is. He's a major arsehole. He is. And I think the issue is everyone was like, oh, it's a scientist that we can use and help to develop the Crucible. It could be a diplomat. It could be someone with advanced knowledge. And it's like, no, it's just a soldier.
Just a really grumpy soldier. And I guess that's the best thing about him, because I really like that, because he's like an anti-hero. He kind of becomes that. He's just so negative. The way he talks to Solarians is like, when my people, the Protheans, discovered you are reptiles who are eating their own
flies,
poo.
Yes.
Yeah, eating
And then
flies.
even I think he was talking to them like, oh, we used to eat you as a delicacy.
Yeah. It was just so refreshing. So I was like, this is perfect. It doesn't match, you'd expect them to be the heroes and stuff.
And I think that really pissed off Liara, because like her whole work, her life's work was studying the Protheans. Like, I think she even did she got like a doctorate following and list and like understanding the Protheans and having them on this high pedestal of like the Enlightenment. They were people who were traveling the galaxies. And then realizing, no, actually, they were just an empire that was basically steamrolling and was evil compared to what she actually had as their depiction.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like people who say the Roman Empire gave Western Europe civilizations. Like, no, didn't they? Just extinguished all the other civilizations. Culture could have been so different. Speaking of which, have you seen that trend on social media about ask your boyfriend how often he thinks about the Roman Empire per month?
I heard that one, yes.
Yeah, I was like, what? This is just ridiculous. Like, how often do you think of the Imperium of Mankind from Warhammer 4000? There's a interesting trend that started from a Swedish social influencer just putting a post out saying, ask your boyfriend how long, blah, blah. And I love how it's just spread into everything. Like, every sort of meme page I'm on, it's like, there's one page I follow called Only Geese, which is just about how geese are the most aggressive, funniest looking creatures. And it's just like, ask the geese how often they think about the Roman Empire. 0. It's great. How often do you think about the Prothean Empire?
Funny enough, when
once a year.
Playing the game, it was really constant, but I think nowadays none at all.
Well, yeah, because maybe you're right. They are kind of like the Roman Empire, aren't they? Well, at least you thought they had so much of an influence and stuff. It just turned out that they were just really good at extinguishing all the others at that time. Yeah. And again, going back to Javid, he has some really good quotes. Like, he's an arsehole, but some quotes, I guess, like, someone talks about, like, we should fight them for honor and decency, blah, blah. And he turns around and says, honor, you think honor is going to win you war? Stand in the ashes of 1 trillion dead souls and ask the ghosts if honor matters. Their silence is your answer.
Yeah,
moments like that. That's why I think he's the coolest.
That was the funny mission that he was basically... I think one thing they did add to Mass Effect 3 was like you could have interaction missions, and like his was like he arrives on the Citadel and everyone's like, oh my days, look at this Prothean, and then he's being an arsehole, and then people are starting to get like, wait a second, what? I thought the Protheans were supposed to be able to save us. Like, who the hell is this guy? And then Shepard has to like kind of like tilt him in the right direction to give like a speech, like, this isn't what they came to hear.
I like that scene. That's really good because they all start crowding around, and even the Hanar, he talks to one of the Hanar, and but then he gives a pep talk in the end. It's like, finally, there's something. He's a great character, and I just wish it wasn't in bloody DLC.
Yeah.
But, wow. Yeah. Honestly, great game. And who was, what was the name of the green assassin guy?
Thane, I believe.
Thane, yeah. He's, again, another cool character. I can't remember what the name of his race were. They're basically a race of, like, reptilian-like creatures who are bonded to the Hanar through their own choice. Because
the Hanar, I think they were about to die out, and the Hanar did save them.
Save them from their home world, so they consider it quite an honor to serve them rather than it being slavery and stuff. And they serve them in any way as assassins, as just like helping them interact, because Hanar are aquatic-based creatures. So, again, so many cool Batarians. I'm sure there's a couple we've missed out, like... we haven't even spoken about the ones in Mass Effect Andromeda, but to be honest, Mass Effect Andromeda might as well have been made by EA. So let's leave that one out. And I guess, Mass Effect Andromeda, the story of that is it's set between Mass Effect 2 and 3. That's an initiative by the Council to basically colonize another galaxy.
It's weirder than that, because it's like...
go on.
It's more of like... I've played the game, so more of like you find out later on in the game, which I think kind of ticked me off, because like if it's a bad game, just tell me the whole story. Like, I don't want it to be like, because it was bad, you left it on a cliffhanger and I don't get to know what the end of the story is. So the person, it was like a enterprise done by, I think it was like this rich person.
Okay.
And that potentially the way it was done was that he was running from something. So you kind of realize like that there's something deeper to the reason, not just the Reapers.
Okay.
That it's something else that caused them to also move to Andromeda Galaxy. So then they leave in between the second and third game, but when they actually arrive, it's 600 years after the third game, because of like how long it takes.
Oh, right, the actual.
So they're basically in stasis for over 600 years.
Wow, that's cool.
And I think the reason why the game doesn't do so well is, one, because they didn't do anything. The characters weren't as good as the characters from the 3 previous games. And I think, like, from what you were saying about Wikipedia, like, the military aspect had gone, and they basically turned it into a space exploration game.
Right.
So then the fans had been used to, like, having a paragon character who's going to save the world. The stakes are high, and you could see that through all the games, that it was high stakes. But then you came out to like a game where it was like, there's this evil alien race which causes people to assimilate into their alien race form. There's also humanity getting used to, and the other races getting used to being in the Andromeda Galaxy.
Okay.
Also, their interactions with the actual other alien race that's there.
Okay.
Also, you want to expand and travel the universe, and also there's this device you need to look at. So it's like 5 or 6 different things that are important happening all at once.
Right, is it too much, would you say?
I would say, yeah, that it is too much, and I think they didn't do all of them very well. So, like, if they'd been like, this alien race, we're going to focus on you, the plot behind it is actually very clever, that the alien race itself causes others to become that race. So if they kidnapped humanity, they would then cause them to turn into themselves.
How? Through biological mutations?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that was very clever, but they didn't go into it as much.
Right. They didn't have as much rich detail and lore.
Yeah. And I think also the fact that you had many different core objectives. So you had to defeat those aliens, then also being able to then help humanity to terraform and colonize, not humanity, the alliance races to colonize that part of the galaxy, which is also a major project as well. They also had you doing space exploration, setting up outposts as well.
Right.
And I think it was just too much and not enough in each individual level, because I've been playing Starfield, and I can see aspects of Andromeda in Starfield, but that Starfield's done it way better. So I think they should have just been this is a Mass Effect exploration game, and this is a continuation of the most known storyline for Mass Effect, and had it as two separate games, because I think fans were okay, then we want it to be in the ilk of, we understand it's not going to be about Shepard. We want it to be in the ilk of high stakes, built characters. But then you get into a game which is trying to fit many different boxes, but then doesn't really fit any of them.
Yeah, that's a shame. They're being too ambitious. Maybe they should have just stuck with separate games, or just lots of DLC. Just make the whole game DLC. You pay to start the game, you pay for to be able to shoot someone. EA have just great business model. People love EA, don't they? So let's talk about some more specific stuff about Mass Effect. So as we said, it was made by BioWare and published by Electronic Arts. And the first Mass Effect came out in 2007. What do you think the Metacritic score was for it?
87, maybe?
91 out of 100,
91,
okay. A thing to point out, actually, about these Metacritic reviews is these are the ones I've chosen for Xbox releases, because it was originally an Xbox game, but then they brought it out for everything else. There were, weirdly enough, there's minor variations in the reviews depending what platform, but very minor. But I guess they might be considering graphics or some consoles operate better than others, such as the PlayStation compared to the crappy Xbox. I was such an Xbox player back in the day, and I just gave up because of Red Ring of Death. Of the Xbox. Was it Xbox One? It just was really disappointing.
Funnily enough, me and my brother joined the console war late. So we got the Xbox 360 with a Kinect. And got the Xbox One. And I think the main reason, funnily enough, I got the Xbox One was that I was invited to, in Shoreditch, the game store were doing you can get 50% off on the Xbox and you get to play it and test out these different games. I was like, well...
What? How? Why?
I think because I had been a member with them for so long, and they were we're inviting people to play the games at this event in Shoreditch. Yeah. So I was able to play the Forza game, the Roman Son of Rome game as well. Yeah. Killer Instinct was another game I was able to play there. And also the latest, I think it was FIFA 14 as well. And they're nice. Because you came, here's a £50 discount and you can pre-order the console here. And I was that's kind of decided for me. So
that's too good an offer to turn down. Yeah. Knowing how much, that was Xbox One.
Yeah.
I haven't owned a games console in ages. I just play on computer now, but then it's Xbox Series S afterwards, right?
Yes.
Yeah, knowing how much their Series S was, it was £500. They just keep going up. Games keep going up. Controllers have always been quite expensive, but they're also going up. Yeah, that 50% voucher is just a no-brainer. I don't blame you. Okay, Mass Effect 2, which came out in 2010. What do you think the Metacritic score was for that?
I would say 98.
Oh, close, 96. But this was, maybe it was for the PlayStation version. I don't know. I'm just basing it off the Xbox ones, but it definitely was. I think the Mass Effect series peaked at Mass Effect 2. Yeah.
And I think until The Witcher came out, I think people said that Mass Effect 2 was the best RPG of the decade until The Witcher came out. I think Witcher came out.
Witcher 3.
Yeah, The Witcher 3 came out in 2016, I believe it came out.
Yeah.
And then that replaced it. And then I think, Mass Effect is considered the second best RPG of that decade.
Right, okay. What would you say is best in your opinion?
Out of the two?
Yeah.
It's a lot closer than I thought it would be, I think, because I first played Mass Effect 2 and then played Mass Effect 1. And I'd come from playing Dragon Age Origins, and I was like, so BioWare make RPGs, this is pretty great.
Yeah.
So then my proper, actually full-on amazing RPG, the first one I ever played was Mass Effect 2. So there's a lot of love there, but I know that nostalgia. Witcher 3 is the better game, but it's just the nostalgia that I have for Mass Effect 2.
Yeah, and it's there's so much to it as well, because it's not just the game, it's the lore, it's the soundtrack. The soundtrack, they did a good, recognizable soundtrack that I still listen to today. It was actually pretty good. I would say it's on a par with almost with Star Wars. Star Wars, for some, maybe because I was a kid and nostalgia and just hearing Binary Sunset always gets to me. But the Mass Effect one, they had their own catchy theme song, especially the one from Mass Effect 1.
Yeah.
There's a lot very catchy. There's no way I can sing it, but really good. I'm very proud of that.
And I think the one I love the most is the one for the suicide mission in Mass Effect.
That's the one I listen to. That's very cool. That is a good one. And Crash Landing as well follows a bit sample from it. And just the way the characters look as well. For example, the armor on the humans, the design of the aliens, they look cool. There's something really you could get that aesthetically they look cool. The ships look cool as well. Yes. The Reapers are cool. Whilst thinking about things like maybe, with Star Wars, what's a big appeal of it is the stormtroopers look cool, the ships look cool, and they sell merchandise on it. And Mass Effect has that potential, but I guess because it came from a video game background and hasn't made a mainstream movie or TV show yet.
It can't really sell.
Yeah.
I think people were buying the N7 hoodies.
Yeah, they look cool.
N7 hats as well. And they've also come up with N7 Day as well, which is the 7th of November.
Oh, right. Just May the 4th, N7 Day. Oh, nice. That's cool, actually, yeah. The hoodies were quite cool, actually. I was very close to getting one at one point, N7. And then we've got Mass Effect 3, which came out in 2012. What do you think the Metacritic score was for that?
90.
Oh, again, you're quite close. 93.
Okay.
Which is interesting that Mass Effect 3 is higher than Mass Effect 1, because it was based on public opinion, because a lot of fans disliked the ending in Mass Effect 3. I would have thought that would have been lower. But it's interesting, the critics, because I actually thought Mass Effect 3 was good. I thought the ending was satisfactory, in my opinion. It could have been better in some ways, but this is the thing. It's like with the Dark Knight trilogy. If it peaks at episode 2, it's going to be so hard to top that, isn't it? And then Mass Effect Andromeda in 2017, after a 5-year break, when they developed a really robust engine that has so many glitches. What do you think the Metacritic score was for that?
67?
no, 72. Again, you are far off. Okay. But yeah, there's a big drop. What would you say was your favorite game out of all the Mass Effects?
Mass Effect 2.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that's when it was really self-confident and just went with it. And the ending, the soundtrack for it as well, it just popped in that. Mass Effect 1 was really good. Mass Effect 3 I thought was a lot better than some fans thought it was. But I thought it was great. Did you like Mass Effect 3?
Yeah. The ending I was kind of disappointed in, but why? I think I wanted more. Because at least with the second game, you had at the end, you could see the Reapers coming towards the galaxy. So you kind of saw okay, then Shepard is getting ready for the next thing. But it kind of felt at the end, so before they did the expanded ending, it was okay, then you pick one of your 3 choices. Okay, you see some cutscenes, and then that's it. Then they added in the further explanation, increasing the ending by I think maybe 5 minutes. The one I always picked was the synthetic ending, making sure that synthetic life and organic life were molded into the same thing.
No, that's a good, very what do you call it? Collaborative ending.
Yeah. And then having Edie having a narration through it. And I think if they had done that to finish off, I think fans would have loved it, because then it was it's an end of an era, but also it's explained how it ends a lot better.
Yeah, exactly. It did feel like that it needed a bit more juice to the end. And again, it would have been nice to see how things got on after the Reaper invasion, because again, it's like very loosely done. And by the way, another great song, the end credits song from Mass Effect 3, phenomenal. I can't remember who actually did it, but it's so good. They just left a couple cutscenes at the end, and basically the ending as well is like, it's very minor things in terms of how good of an ending it could be. I know you have those little cutscenes and stuff, but for example, if Big Ben is still standing in it, that means you've done an ending where you've got enough strength with all the forces you've united to ensure that most of the galaxy, or a lot of the galaxy, is still preserved. Whilst if Big Ben's fallen, it means you've won, but most of the galaxy isn't preserved. Like, so much has been destroyed. And it's just like, wow. I went back, loaded back, spent extra hours recruiting more people, therefore getting more of this power. I did the Leviathan
the whole
DLC.
galactic readiness thing that was annoying, because like part of the galactic readiness was like you could do all the missions and recruit everyone, but you then had to play online to get the final bump.
Yeah, that was
I think that really ticked off fans, because they were like, why should my story be affected by having to then go online?
It depends. How much did you have to play online to get it?
I think you had to do a fair bit, so at least like 3 or 4 missions, and then your galactic readiness would go up. But the thing is, if you then didn't, it would then decrease bit by bit by bit. So you then have to, EA yet again increasingly have to then go online to play, which was annoying, because like you would be like, I've got everything perfect on the in-game story, but just because I haven't played I haven't actually I haven't played online for a while, I won't get the very best ending.
That's really unfair, because some people love RPGs because they're usually solo games, and you don't have the stress of dealing with noobs or overpowered people who have done pay-to-play stuff online.
But the way they did it was like, you play as a group against the AI.
Oh, it was cooperative, was it? Oh, yeah. Oh, my bad. I totally forgot about that. It's funny, I really didn't play much of the multiplayer. It just didn't really
I rarely ever
me.
played it. I just found it annoying, because then you would then also have to then find someone who's also available at that time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's stressful. I felt it was good, a nice addition, but maybe a little unnecessary. Whilst games like, for example, the new Battlefield games, if there's single player, it feels like they've just added it in there to say that they've got single player, but it's crap. Maybe with 1 or 2 good missions. Whilst Mass Effect, I don't know, I didn't play enough of the multiplayer. It just didn't work for me, but maybe others had a better experience. Maybe our audience would know, perhaps.
And just quickly on this point, I read an article recently that EA was pushing BioWare to do more multiplayer. So like in Dragon Age Inquisition, there was something very similar that you could also like go as a group and then fight against the AI.
Yeah.
And I think they used that to then develop the game Anthem, which was a complete flop, which was like their online MMO type game, similar to like, you've got like Overwatch, you've got the Division as well.
With all these character-based ones.
And I think that it flopped, because I think fans were like, why do we have this game? Like, it's RPG elements online, and I think fans were like, well, we don't really need it. Yeah,
I guess it's just too ambitious and not necessary, and sometimes they can have a vision like that for a game. It just doesn't. Someone should have said, this isn't going to work, guys. But I don't know. I don't really know much about the game industry to why they got that far. Some questions I've got about the Mass Effect game. So, what are some of the key themes of Mass Effect?
I would say a key theme about Mass Effect is not prejudice, basically. So not judging someone based on their character, based on their race,
or because they're a Batarian.
Yeah. And like, even like in the second game with Jack, the fact she's locked up, and you basically could be prejudiced against her because she's been imprisoned, and also she's crazy, but in fact she was made to be.
Yeah.
And then if you're a Paragon, you can actually help to bring her to have like some form of like compassion later on, and we can really see it in like the third game. I think that's the key thing. Cool. So whether it's like not being prejudiced against other races, and also not being prejudiced like against other characters as well, I think is another key thing. And I think another key aspect they do talk about in Mass Effect is also, I think one thing that got the game banned in Australia, which was like,
oh right,
yeah, it was about because Liara and the female shepherd could have a love scene.
Yeah,
the game was banned in certain countries.
Really? Why? Because because it was
because of
homosexual content.
Yeah.
Oh, geez. Well, yeah. I guess that could happen.
That's another, and I think that was the first time in a video game that there was an actual explicit, that you could have an explicit homosexual sex scene.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Did not.
Yeah.
Never really thought about that. Actually, it never came to mind. Because there's a thing about Dragon Age Origins that's not in it, is it? That you'd have male and female.
No, you could, but Mass Effect, the first game came out before Dragon Age Origins.
Ah, right, okay.
Yeah, so it was the first one that you could have. Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy. Wow, Mass Effect was really breaking boundaries then.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
This is how great Mass Effect series is. we need something after Andromeda's failure. Like, we need more sex scenes.
they are doing another game, but they've been very closed mouth about it. And I think the issue with like RPG makers in general is that Baldur's Gate came out and it was like an amazing game and fans have loved it. And then it's kind of like pushed back other video games in the RPG realm because they're like, we need to be at least a level below Baldur's Gate, because if we're too far away from it, we will lose fans, because they're like, well, I can just go back and play Baldur's Gate if you're not going to be, if you're not going to have a good enough game. And I think also with like Bethesda releasing Starfield, they've also had to look and be like, okay, then now there's an RPG that's set in space. We need to now re-look and re-identify how we're going to do our game for like for Mass Effect. And I think that's the issue now with BioWare, is that they've got two IPs, being Dragon Age and Mass Effect, that fans love the lore and want them to bring out a game for, but because the changing gaming environment and expectations have changed, they're then having to like reevaluate like how they're going to develop games in the future.
And respond, I guess, because if you keep oversaturating the market, because like those games like Overwatch, was it Anthem was similar, did you say?
Yeah, they also had Fortnite as well, which is still going on.
Yeah, Fortnite, PUBG, a new game comes out that really sets the like, says that is really like revolutionary, and then suddenly all these copycats come out and it's really oversaturates the market.
Yeah.
I guess when that happens, like this new game that comes out that's revolutionary, everyone has to stop and think, okay, what have they done? We need to push back our release date and try and incorporate some of those elements.
Yeah, like you could see certain games did it when Skyrim came out.
Oh yeah? What would you say?
I would think potentially that Skyrim could have caused like Dragon Age to push back their game.
Right.
And I think also Witcher as well to push back a bit as well.
Right, okay.
And I think also like when Witcher 3 came out, it shook up the whole like RPG.
Yeah.
Because even the people who were developing the game for Baldur's Gate, Larian Studios, they said they took things away from The Witcher, especially on the different endings that you could have based on your different choices throughout the game.
Right, so it goes that far back, really, yeah. Oh, wow, that's good. It's good to see the industry is responding in the right way. If only they took on board the DLC thing, which fans always complain about, but that's just always going to be a moneymaker, isn't it?
It is.
I guess go back to key themes. I would say, a key theme that just always seems to pop up in science fiction is the dangers of synthetic life and AI, that there always seems to be this constant battle. And
yes.
Mass Effect very much encapsulates that with the Reapers, which are kind of weirdly organic, I guess, in their own way, but they're there to basically preserve the galaxy through maintaining a balance between synthetics and organics always try and come out on top by the looks of it.
Yeah, and you could kind of say like they're the original Thanos. Like, if you think about it, they also work like kind of like limiting the expanse of like organic races to a point that they couldn't sustain themselves anymore. So I know their main purpose was to stop organics making a form of synthetic life that would then cancel out all organic life. Mm-hmm. But then also by doing that, they limited like how far the organic life could grow.
Yeah, by giving them the tools, and then that once they reach the point, it's like giving someone breadcrumbs, isn't it?
Yeah. or giving giving someone like the tools to break into a house, and as soon as they do, you
Setting
then
on fire.
you're setting on fire, or basically being like taking pictures, caught in the act, arrest this guy.
Yeah.
Like a form of
Smart
like
move.
police entrapment.
Yeah, that's a good move, actually. Yeah, it's basically Reaper's logic. I guess you could argue sort of sustainability comes into it because there's a lot of key references to it. Now, for example, the Krogan's homeworld, they nuked themselves.
Yeah.
You know, that could have easily been us in a Cold War. If you look at stuff about Earth in it, there's so much space junk around it that this is a really side thing, but it's just written when you look at, your codex or log, and you pick up bits of information. Basically, because of humanity going to space so much and just jettisoning,
all the stuff
rockets,
into space, yeah.
little bits of even like a little bit of paint that chips off a ship, because it's spinning around the Earth at such a speed that would literally go straight through another ship if it didn't have a proper protection on it. I guess the whole idea of the Reapers preserving the galaxy, the Fane homeworld as well, about how they basically did that themselves. The Solarians, how they realized they were destroying the environment.
And also that brings in a discussion about how far science should go.
Right.
And like the question you should ask yourself is that if a race is potentially going to self-destruct, how much should you push into it? Like the Solarians also getting involved with the Krogan to begin with, like we've discussed before, that is a really key question. And I think then
it's playing God, isn't it?
Yeah, that they played God in providing them with the weapons, and then played God by enacting the genophage. And then, some fans are like, "Oh yes, if they didn't, the Krogan would have then taken over the galaxy and basically gone to war with all other of the council races."
Yeah,
and then you then ask yourself the question: that was it a bad thing or was it a good thing?
Yeah, first of all, get the Krogan to fight the Arachni.
Yeah,
and then using the genophage,
And I think that's the big questions I think that I really do enjoy about Mass Effect, because you can have an argument for either side. And fans pick a side, but it's not as if the questions are there's one right answer, the other one's completely wrong. You can never see from that point of view.
Yeah, it's very true. Even stuff for example, Samara and her a companion mission with her daughter Morinth. You literally, even though Morinth is pretty evil, she was born with this condition, and Samara has to kill her. And it's whoa, that's a bit dark. But then also, if you choose the side of Morinth, she kills Samara, and then Morinth is pretty ice cold. So. Yeah, there's no right or wrong.
And also, I think another big thing is Cerberus. Having a human first group, and I think you don't really see that a lot. I did read in Star Wars lore, and I think this is the thing that really ticks me off with Star Wars, is that there's so much within the lore that comes from books that they could show, but I think they're just too afraid. In Star Wars, there was a stage where humans disliked other aliens and then kind of started a crusade against them, against other aliens in the Star Wars galaxy. I think really early on, and I think the Jedi had to intervene, and that's how the Jedi then became the protectors of the Republic.
Right, okay.
And then I'm it kind of happens with Mass Effect. You have Cerberus, who are actually a human nationalist group, and then they're in the second game, oh no, we're just putting human interests, everybody else is doing it, why shouldn't we also do it?
And it's true. It's interesting because Shepard, everyone has their suspicions at first. You meet Ashley again in Mass Effect 2.
Yes.
And you're expecting, especially if you had the romance with
to be to rekindle anything.
Yeah, hey, babe.
Oh, so it's true that you are part of Cerberus. How dare you? The Shepard I knew would never team up with Cerberus type thing.
Yeah, because they're seen as extremists, terrorists, but really Cerberus are the only ones who are taking the Reaper threat seriously. And
the thing with the collectors.
Yeah.
And it's just also weird that then they become the full-on major villains in the third game. And people say, and they believe that the elusive man could have been indoctrinated as far as the midpoint of the second game.
Really?
Yeah, and I think some people think that the Reapers were playing a really long game with him, and that he had been indoctrinated.
But am I bring back Shepard there? Well, mind you, I guess he wasn't. If he wasn't indoctrinated by the start of second game, okay, fair. Yeah, that's interesting fan theory. I need to look at more of those fan theories. Apparently, there's like a lot of like loopholes in the story as well, especially with the Reapers coming every 50,000 years. Because I just remember reading them up a while ago. But you know, you look at anything like, come on, Star Wars is the king of loopholes with all these stories.
Yes.
I guess that's a key theme in this as well, multiculturalism and tension, you know, and it's quite, you see that a lot in Star Trek because they treat, like with Mass Effect, they treat their alien races with respect and like delve into lore and all this cool stuff. Well, Star Wars just doesn't really do that. Although you could argue it is about multicultural because the Empire is a xenophobic empire, but they just never show that in the TV shows or movies because I guess Star Wars, it's kind of audience, they don't want to go too dark with things.
And that's the thing that really ticks me off is that if they did, there would be a viewer audience that would like it a lot more.
Yeah.
And I think that's the kind of thing they've also done with like Marvel, which has caused shows like The Boys to really hit off. Because it's like you have X-rated Marvel comics, which are just as bad as The Boys.
Yeah.
Especially like the one comic where if they made it live action, fans would love it. Where Wolverine and...
All new series of Boys is out, by the way.
that Wolverine and the Hulk get in a fight and like the Hulk rips Wolverine in half and like rips his spine out.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
okay.
and like another one was that Magneto was fighting Wolverine and literally like pulled his adamantium off his bones. Mm-hmm. And because of the poisoning that he suffered, he actually turned into like a full-on feral Wolverine. Like he'd lost his mind because how much pain he was in.
Oh my God.
And it then boosted like his healing factor. So he literally just went on a mental rampage.
And he just couldn't be stopped. He's like invulnerable, immortal. God, that'd be interesting to see.
Yeah. And I think one thing that they do with Mass Effect that Star Trek does is that they take like different...
Scotty, beam me up.